Hey everyone, welcome back to Above the Yellow Line. My name is Taylor Kitchen, and today we are breaking down the best paint schemes of 2023. There are some rules that go into this. This is going to be a two-part video. The first part, we're going to go through half the field. The second part, we're going to go through the rest and definitively claim who had the best paint scheme of 2023. Now, these were all picked by me. I went through every single paint scheme from every single number that was run in the Cup Series this season, and I picked the best out of each one. So this might be a little biased, a little subjective. So obviously each of these paint schemes already stuck out to me, but we're gonna do this with three rules in mind. First off is the eye test, first impressions. What were my initial thoughts when I looked at this paint scheme? Second is gonna be uniqueness. Was this unique because of a certain race it was at? Is this scheme different than others that I've seen? Is this a different sponsor? Speaking of sponsors, the third part of this criteria is, does this paint scheme do the sponsor justice? Does it show them in a great light? Does this give them great exposure? So those are the three prongs that we're going to be looking at while we grade these paint schemes on a tier list, S being the highest and F being the lowest. Again, these are all my favorite paint schemes, so if I give somebody's paint scheme an F, that doesn't mean I dislike it, that just means it's not the best of the rest. So without further ado, let's start off with the number one of Ross Chastain. There were many great paint schemes to choose from for Ross Chastain, but I picked this Breast Cancer Awareness Month Worldwide Express paint scheme that he ran at the Roval. I just like how the pink looks on the blue of this car. So it passed the eye test right away in terms of something that was pretty interesting. In terms of uniqueness, again, this is a normal scheme that Ross runs just with a color difference. So it's not completely unique, but it does do the sponsor justice. Again, I think they do a great job at Trackhouse, really highlighting the sponsor, really big on the hood, pretty visible on the side. I will say though, sometimes the white with this blue can be washed out, so it's a little tricky to see sometimes. So after looking at kind of initial impressions, I think I'm gonna give this paint scheme like a solid C. Like, it's really good, don't get me wrong. But I think it could be a little bit more. A great scheme though. Moving on to the number two of Austin Cindric. This paint scheme was kind of a no-brainer for me. It kind of reminds me of Tron a little bit, so that's why I like it so much. But this is his Freightliner scheme. He was run through multiple races this season. I will say the discount tire and the Keystone Light schemes came to mind when I was picking out my favorite for Austin Cindric. But just this is very unique. So it passes the uniqueness, the eye test, because it's so unique and it's just very eye-catching with the blue underneath that like navy blue. It works really well. I will say the one thing that I don't like about the scheme is I don't really know if it does the sponsor justice or not. I feel like the logo is really small on the side of the car, but you don't see other cars in the field that have lines on it like this. It's very unique. It's very different. Honestly, I'm gonna give it a D just because it is unique. It's really cool. Obviously, I love it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on this list. But it's just not there for me. Just not there. Next up, Austin Dillon with his bioethanol scheme. Again, there's multiple I could have picked for Austin Dillon, but this one sticks out to me just because it is pretty different. I think it does do the sponsor justice. The logo is very big on the hood. I feel like it's great use of the side of the car as well. It is very basic though, kind of, not really. I don't know. I'm gonna give this one a D as well. It gives me the same vibes as Austin Cindric's car, again, which is not bad. But with the rest we're gonna be rating, it just doesn't match that standard of like S tier-ness, I guess. We're just gonna move on. From Ream to the Mobil 1 Patriotic scheme to the Budweiser throwback. Come on, you had to pick the Budweiser throwback, but Kevin Harvick's paint schemes, as always, were bangers this season. But this one, the significance of it was great. Uniqueness, we haven't had Budweiser in the sport like this, like the actual Budweiser logo on a car like this in this type of way in a very long time. So this is fantastic, and this was run for the Forever 400 at Homestead. Altogether, this screams S tier, and I'm gonna give this to it. I really am. It was so good, and I remember online, Twitter, wherever you were on, Threads, whatever it is, everyone was losing their minds about this tribute to Harvick, throwing it back to his championship. Like, this deserves S tier, completely well done. For Larson, there was not a lot to choose from. Again, the Valvoline scheme tends to be my favorite for him. I feel like they do the sponsor justice. I do not like, though, how the L and the I are cut off by that wheel in the back. That kind of just, it bothers me a little bit. On the hood, things look great. I like the colors. I like the vibrancy of the red. I'm gonna give this one a C, just a basic C. It might move up when we kind of reconfigure things at the end in part 2 of this video, but I think this scheme deserves a C. This is where it gets tough. All of the RFK schemes this year were bangers, knocked out of the park. There was not a single paint scheme from this team that I did not like. So that tells you right off the bat, this was a very difficult choice for me. But as always, Brad Keselowski's patriotic paint schemes always stand out to me. This looked so good with the gold chrome number. It was incredible. Like, I want to give this an S tier, and I might move with there, but I'm gonna give this an A. I just thought it was so well done. This was better to see in person, and I think the picture does it justice. But yeah, definitely A category for sure. LaJoie always has very unique sponsors, and this was definitely one of them, the Fraternal Order of Eagles. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not look up what that was, so I have no clue. But I thought the eagle on the car looked very good, and there's not a lot of times that we see a neon yellow with black undertones on a car, and I really like this. It stood out to me. I thought it was pretty unique. I thought it did the sponsor justice as well. But at the same time, it is still very basic. I know I love paint schemes that have clean lines and things like that, and this falls under that category, but it is a step above, like just your general greatness of basic. I'm gonna give this one a C as well. Kyle Busch also had some pretty good paint schemes this year. Casey Pizza, I love. The Thornton's Cheddar's Patriotic scheme was also really fun. I loved that underlying kind of like wallpaper design on the hood of that car. But this Lucas Oil one from his win at Auto Club, I like this one, I think, the most for him. It is very plain, but it does do the sponsor justice. I mean, the sponsor logo is massive on this car, but it is very basic. I don't know if I want to give this one an F. I feel like that's a little harsh because this was a really good scheme, but in terms of where we're going with the rest of these that I'm going to show you, this one is giving F vibes, I guess, so I'm going to give it an F. I am so sorry. Moving on to Chase Elliott in the number 9, and like last year, I picked the Hooters paint scheme because I think it utilizes the space on the car really well, because if you didn't have the owl on the side of the car, there would be a huge blank space between the 9 and Hooters. So it's playful, it's fun, I like the colors. I feel like it is a little bit too dark, which, I mean, not a bad thing. I'm gonna give this one a D. It's fun, it's playful, it does the sponsor justice, I think. But again, it's not totally my favorite out of them all, but of course my favorite Chase Elliott paint scheme nonetheless. Moving on to the 10 of Aric Almirola. Now, I was about to have to explain myself. I was about to go with the half Smithfield, half IHOP paint scheme because I thought it looked cool, even though a lot of other people thought it looked really gross. I thought it was a great scheme, but I went a little bit more basic, and I put basic in quotes because this car is nothing but. It's the Go Bowling scheme that he ran, and it's just so fun. Like, it makes me want to go bowling. It's unique, it's fun, it's playful. It does a sponsor justice with the pins and the bowling ball. This one's gonna get an A from me. I thought it was really good. Moving on to Denny Hamlin, and I fault myself for this again. I went pretty basic. I love the color combinations of white, red, and blue, or I like the color combination of white, red, and black, and this fits that category with the sports clip scheme. It does do the sponsor justice, and of course it passes the eye test. The chrome numbers always are going to get me right off the bat. I'm gonna give this one a D. It is pretty basic still. I might move it to F. It's, again, none of these are bad schemes. I want to reiterate, none of these are bad. These were the best of the best in my opinion this season, but I'm gonna give this one a D compared to what we have. For Ryan Blaney, again, so many to choose from. I could have gone with the body armor scheme for the Coke 600. I could have gone with the body armor water schemes. There is a lot of Menard schemes I could have gone with, but the advanced auto ones are always going to be probably one of my favorites that Ryan Blaney runs. Now, this one is pretty particular, like the August Daytona race where the hood was yellow. I don't like how that scheme looks, but I do like how the scheme looks when it's like the Bristol Night race, for example, when the hood is black. I just love just how this is. I like the color of the yellow as well. I know it's like it's a branding thing, but I still really like it. I think everything matches together really well. This is one of the more basic schemes, but I am going to give it a C because this one does catch your eye with how the colors match together, and of course that chrome number. Of course, not a full-time driver in the Cup Series, but this was a number that was run this year. Chandler Smith in the 13 at Daytona. I love the quick tie scheme. I really do. I know like the red and the blue feel very muted, subdued. Again, I'm not a designer by any case of the imagination. I used to work at a clothing store, so that's the top of design I can get in terms of putting things together in style, but I just like how this looks. I always have, but I am gonna give it an F because it is very, again, I hate to use the word basic, but it is very basic in terms of the rest that we're looking at here. It's not completely unique. I do like how the lines aren't like totally clean and straight. It's kind of fun, but I am gonna move this to an F. I do apologize to Chandler Smith in the 13. Okay, I almost feel like I have to do this next scheme with somebody else's, but I digress. Chase Briscoe, the Old Spice scheme that was run at Talladega for Talladega Nights, that kind of tribute to that. I love this, having Old Spice back in the sport with this was fantastic. Now, the scheme isn't totally unique because, you know, the movie and everything like that, but the situation in which this was brought back, I felt was unique. I'm gonna give this one an S tier completely. Just such a fun thing for fans, and I think this also got a lot of non-NASCAR fans to watch as well because they were like, Talladega Nights, what a fun movie. They're gonna have the cars actually in the race. I gotta watch it. So this overall did a very good job. Great marketing effort for Stewart-Haas Racing. Okay, for the next paint schemes, and I say schemes for the number 15, I'm going to cheat the system. We had multiple drivers racing in the 15 this year, and there were 2 that were too good to just not have. So, first up, we have Riley Herbst's Daytona 500 scheme, the Sunny D one. I just love how this looks. I grew up drinking Sunny D. This is very nostalgic for me. I know that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. runs these type of schemes sometimes. I know that other drivers have this that they've run. I know Kevin Harvick actually ran a Sunny D scheme this year as well for his Darlington throwback, part of that. But yeah, this one just is fun. I'm gonna give this one a B. I think this is the first B we have on the list. It stands out to you, it pops. I might move it to an A later, we'll see. But it does the sponsor justice. It's a great looking scheme, well done. In terms of uniqueness, this is why I bring up the JJ Yeley number 15 scheme. This is for Jungle Law. This scheme made me look up this company. And I will say, for that reason, it does the sponsor justice. It makes people want to learn what this company is all about. This scheme is also very unique with the leopard and the zebra print and everything in between. It is so fun. I think this might be the weirdest paint scheme of the year. And for that reason, I think I'm gonna give it an A. I might move it to S, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's just, again, it's not the best looking scheme, but it is probably the most fun. Before I move on to my actual favorite scheme for AJ Allmendinger, I want to show you the honorable mention. This was the Gabriel Glass scheme that he ran at Sonoma. I haven't seen a car like this one, the font of the company that they use for their logo. Then I love the use of the wine glasses to kind of fill that empty space between the 16 and the company's name. I just thought that was really good. And then kind of the wine glass spilling the wine kind of like into where the tire is in the front of the car. I just thought that looked really good. But that is not my favorite scheme that Allmendinger ran this year, unfortunately. I ended up going with this BTS paint scheme because the neon yellow, again, I love neon yellow on cars when it is done right, and this with that blue definitely looks great. Again, I know this is a sponsor's colors, I get it, but it looks great on a car. I mean, Colleague always knocks it out of the park with their designs, so I mean, having a great design like this does not surprise me, but I thought this was awesome, and I think the logo on the hood of the car, the sponsor's done justice. It's unique. I also love the tire marks on the side of the car as well. I thought that was a really nice touch. So this scheme is gonna get, I think I'm gonna give it a C. I'm gonna give it a C. I might move it up, but it kind of goes in line with the Valvoline scheme a little bit in terms of like how it looks and how it feels, with like an added touch of greatness to it. Again, RFK schemes, they are tough to pick from because they are all home runs. This Chris Buescher scheme, I had to pick this one in particular because I saw this one at Michigan and it blew me away with the matte black for that Castrol. I know that Brad ran a similar scheme with his number on it, but this one for Chris, it just the 17, I don't know why it looks better with this particular paint scheme. I love it. It's getting an A right away. Both RFK cars deserve S tier, but with where we're ranking right now, we're gonna be an A. They're just so good. Martin Truex Jr., his paint schemes are great. Again, that's why this is in this list, but I will say they are more basic, more subdued than the rest that we are looking at today. For that reason, I'm gonna give this auto owner's insurance scheme an F. Again, not bad by any means, but it doesn't totally stand out. It does the sponsor justice, it's fine, but it's not totally unique because we've seen this run quite a bit throughout this season, and even last season he had one that was pretty much the same as this or similar to. All right, in terms of uniqueness, I know all the Joe Gibbs cars ran this interstate battery scheme, and spoiler alert, you're gonna see this again another time in this list later on, but it looks so good on Christopher Bell's car, and when I had to choose between this one and a few of the others that Bell ran this season, I do love the Yahoo scheme, but I think I like it better on the 11. This one just stood out to me, and it is also very unique. You don't see a lot of other paint schemes where I guess the underneath of where all the logos are staying on top of are a certain design, and we'll get to that with Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s cars in a little bit. But the Lightning, it's iconic. It's interstate batteries. I'm gonna give this one a C though. I will explain myself later on when we get to a few other drivers, but it's gonna sit in the C category for now. Next up, Harrison Burton. Again, this paint scheme, not totally unique, not totally different. Harrison Burton didn't run a whole lot of schemes this year. He had pretty much the same sponsors for each one, which is fantastic. That's what we want to see. We want to see sponsorship commitment. So in terms of that, A+, but this scheme for me is a little too basic for the best of the best for this season. So I'm gonna put it in the F category. It kind of falls in line with what Martin Truex Jr.'s paint scheme embodied, in my opinion. It kind of fits along those same terms. So unfortunately, Harrison Burton's scheme for this year sits in the F category, but again, reiterating, that doesn't mean it was bad. These are the best of the best. Next up is Joey Logano's Pennzoil paint scheme from Vegas this past year. This one gave me Steve Park vibes, but because of the nostalgia that this brought, it passed the eye test. It's not totally unique in a sense, but compared to what Joey Logano runs each year with Pennzoil, I thought this was a nice change of pace. I'm actually gonna give this one a B. I know a lot of you guys won't agree with it, but I thought that was really fun, so it's gonna sit at a B. Final scheme for part 1 of this video should not shock anybody, but again, 2311, kind of like with RFK, bangers. Every single paint scheme that they put out, they're all so good. This one though, when this came out for the Phoenix race to end the season, I lost my mind. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I have a lot of Star Wars fans in my lives, and we were all freaking out over this one. This is the Star Wars Columbia collaboration. Columbia as a whole this year had really great paint schemes in the 2311 camp. But also it was really hard to choose between Grimace, the Money Lion scheme for Bubba Wallace. But this one, I mean, how could I not pick this? It stands out and it looks fantastic. It's unique. It definitely caught my eye. But here's where I kind of step back. I don't know if it does the sponsor justice because the Columbia logo, at least on the side of the car, it's very small. And that's why I'm like, I don't know. Like from first glance, I would just think this is a really cool car. I don't know if I could totally tell it's Star Wars right off the bat, but it's really neat. That's why I know this deserves an S tier, and you all are going to hate me, and I apologize. But because it's not totally recognizable as to what it is at first glance, unless you saw the marketing campaigns and you saw R2-D2 at the track and the clone troopers, I'm gonna give this one a. Do I dare do a C? You guys I'm gonna give it a C. I'm so sorry. You all are going to hate me. In terms of uniqueness, home run, A+. In terms of everything else, A+. But this one, because it's not totally recognizable at first, C. I'm so sorry. I hate to end this video off on a bad note. But that is part 1 of the 2-parter ranking of the 2023 best paint schemes. Let me know what you think so far in the comments below. Did I sin? Did I do anything that was totally wrong besides that last paint scheme from Bubba Wallace? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, for more NASCAR news as the off-season continues, make sure to visit TobyChristie.com. And of course, visit my website abovethelowline.com for more about us and for our merchandise. Maybe a good Christmas gift for somebody in your family that watches the show. But next video, we will conclude this ranking, so be prepared for that. But until next time, thanks all for the support, and I'll see ya. Bye.